Hey guys, this is going to be the second video in section 6.4, and we've got 3 examples to do in this section. So if you'll go down to example number 3. So take a look here. This one's a little bit different. You'll notice that when I go to try to graph this, this is not written in that standard form like I'm used to. Notice that the b has been factored out of my equation here in the standard form, but here my b has not been factored out. So before you can use your phase shift or your horizontal translation formulas, you need to have that factored out first. So that's the very first thing that we're going to do. Let's factor out the 2, and when we factor out the 2, that'll be 2 times the quantity x minus pi over 2. Remember that factoring out is just division. One way that you can always check your work is to redistribute. If I have 2 times pi over 2, that gives me pi. So just factor out whatever that number is. Okay, so then we can go ahead and get started. My amplitude is going to be 3/2. My period will be 2 pi over 2, which reduces to pi. My phase shift, which is also the same thing as my horizontal translation, is going to be to the right pi over 2. To the right pi over 2. All right, so let's go ahead then and get our 4 intervals. And remember that we're going to be only working with the amplitude and the period at first. That's all we're going to work with. All right, so my 4 intervals then will go all the way out to pi. Half of that is pi over 2. Half of that is pi over 4. And then I can count 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, and 4/4. All right, and pick a spot and call it 3/2 for the top and the bottom of your graph. This is a cosine graph, and cosine graphs begin at the maximum. Remember that they not only begin, but they also end at the maximum. The middle is going to be my minimum, and the quarters are going to be my x-intercepts. So this is going to be my cosine graph with only the amplitude and the period. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all 5 of my major values, and I want to shift them to the right, pi over 2. Now, in my graph, pi over 2, you'll notice, is 8 blocks. So everything is going to shift to the right 8 blocks. All right, so the maximum is going to shift forward 8 blocks, x-intercept, shift forward 8 blocks, minimum forward 8 blocks, the next x-intercept, which I covered up, forward 8 blocks, and then the maximum forward 8 blocks. So here is 1 period of my cosine, and you'll notice to get my missing values here, we just have to count 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4. This one's going to be 5/4, and this one will be 6/4. So we have 5/4 for this one. 6/4 is the same thing as 3 pi over 2. Notice, however, we're asked to graph 2 periods. So we just, all I need to do, I don't even need to switch colors, but just to show you that where the second period is, we can just finish graphing another period. And in order to get those values, all I have to do is go backwards. So negative pi over 4 and negative 2 pi over 4, which is pi over 2. All right. Okay, so let's go ahead then and do example number 4. In this one, I do not need to do any factoring. It already looks good. All right, so my amplitude is going to be careful here, 3. Amplitude is 3. Remember, that's the a value, and it's being multiplied by the trig function. Period is going to be 2 pi over 2, so it's just going to be pi. The phase shift or the horizontal translation, there is none. And the vertical translation is going to be down 2 units. All right, so on this one, what I'm going to do, let's go ahead and mark our period and our amplitude first to get our 5 major values. So if we mark 4 equal intervals, The ending interval is going to be pi, half of that pi over 2, half of that pi over 4. So 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4. My amplitude is 3. And so since I have to do some shifting up and down, I'm actually going to mark 3 blocks as 3. Equal there. All right, so to get my 5 major values, again, this is a cosine graph. And so my first one is going to be at a maximum, and so is my last one. My middle is going to be at a minimum, and then the quarters will be at x-intercepts. So now what I need to do, I'm not going to be shifting right and left at all, but I am going to be shifting down 2 units. So just take each of your 5 majors and go down 2 units, 2 blocks. And once you get there, you can graph your cosine graph. Notice once again that it does ask us for 2 periods. All right, so here's going to be my next, what would have been my x-intercept, but it was shifted down 2. And then here's my minimum. And then again, an x-intercept that was shifted down 2 units. And my maximum. And notice that every 2 blocks is a distance of pi over 4. So really all I need to do is just count. So this is -1/4. This one is going to be -2/4 or negative pi over 2. This one will be -3/4. And then the last one, -4/4. So negative pi. All right, one more example. This is example number 5. Once again, notice that this is not written in the correct way. We need to factor out the 4 so that it matches our standard equation. So when we factor out that 4, we're going to be left with a quantity of x plus pi over 4. All right, so my amplitude then is going to be 2. The period will be 2 pi over 4, so that's going to reduce to pi over 2. The phase shift, or the horizontal translation, is going to be to the left, pi over 4. And my vertical translation is going to be down 1. Down 1. All right, once again, ignore the shifts for right now and only pay attention to the amplitude and the period. Those are the only 2 things that we care about for the moment. And so we'll mark 4 equal intervals on our graph. The last one will be the period of pi over 2. Half of that is pi over 4. Half of that is pi over 8. So we got 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, and 4/8. And I'm just going to mark 2 blocks as 2 because we're going to have to shift down 1. You can spread it out a little bit if you would like to, but that's what I decided to do. All right, so sine graph starts at the origin, goes to the maximum, back to the x-axis, minimum, back to the x-axis. All right, so now I'm ready to shift my graph. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to shift to the left pi over 4. Notice that pi over 4 is 8 blocks on this graph. The way that I have it marked, it's 8 blocks. So all 5 of my majors need to go left 8 blocks, and then I also want to go down 1 block, and I can do both of those at the same time. So take your first x-intercept, go left 8 blocks, and go down 1 block. For the maximum, go left 8 blocks and go down 1 block. For the x-intercept, left 8 blocks, down 1. For the minimum, left 8, down 1. And lastly, for the axis, x-intercept here, left 8, down 1. I can go ahead and graph that. Once again, notice that we are asked to graph 2 full periods. And so every 4 blocks, we have something else happening. So if I go another 4 blocks, That's going to be my, my maximum. And then another 4 blocks will be my x-axis. Another 4 blocks will be, let's see, sorry, that shouldn't have been the x-axis because we went down 1. It used to be an x-axis, but it was shifted down 1. And then we have a minimum. And then back to what would have been the x-axis, shifted down 1. So that this one right here is my second full period that is drawn. All I need to do to get those extra values is just to keep on counting. So you had 1/8, 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8. The next one will be 5/8. So 5 pi over 8, and then 6/8. 6/8 is 3 pi over 4. And this next question, really, we've been doing this all of 6-3 and 6-4, but just take some time and make sure that you understand what does the A, the B, the C, and the D do to each graph.